Hi, Grace.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well. I like your naming convention. I was a KIO when I was in college.
Oh, thank you. We did online rush and I have yet to change it.
Online rush seems like the weirdest thing that could ever be. All right, here we go.
Definitely not normal.
Hey, welcome Danielle and Lavender. It's so great to have you guys.
Sharon, you're on mute, right?
Hi, Andy.
I saw your mouth moving and I couldn't tell whether you're on mute or not.
I'm waiting on one more panelist and then we'll get started in just a minute. But
Okay.
welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to give her just another minute. And Lily and David, we are recording this session, so I just need to get a thumbs up from you that you're okay with it being recorded. We're going to be sharing it out with the students, of course, who have participated in the panel, and we'll also be making it available for students who were not able to make the panel tonight. And so it'll be available in lots of different um, on lots of different platforms. And so we appreciate you being here. So let's get started. I am so super thrilled to kick off the first of 10 alumni panels that we're going to be hosting this spring. I have a soft place in my heart for the arts. I was an art major when I was an undergrad at Appalachian State many, many years ago. So it's thrilling to be able to kick off the series with a panel around careers working in and around the arts. And so I am joined tonight by two panelists. I'm going to let them tell their story and introduce themselves. But before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping notes. First of all, like I said, it is being recorded. I'm going to follow up after the panel is over with everyone who attended and registered with the link of the recording. And in that, it'll come via email. And in that email, I'm going to also include some jobs that our team has sourced that are in line with the panel topic. So our team over in employee relations has gone into Handshake and they have found jobs that they think that our students might be interested in that relate to the arts. And so I'll send that email probably first thing in the morning. And so that you can check those opportunities out right on Handshake and apply. And hopefully these two beautiful humans who have joined us tonight can help you figure out which direction that you want to go. Like I said, this is the first of 10 panels that we're going to be doing this spring, and they're going to be every Wednesday at 5. And so I'm not sure if you guys know, but next Wednesday is the 14th, and that's a little special day, right? It's Valentine's Day. So what better way, right, to celebrate love than to join us again next Wednesday at 5 o'clock for a panel. And the topic next week is around government and politics. And so if you're interested in careers in government and politics, I've assembled and curated some more great alumni who will talk about their careers, and we'll repeat the same thing throughout the semester. So I'll include links to sign up for those panels in that email as well. Okay. All right. There were two panelists that weren't able to join us this evening. Life happens, their work happens. We always expect this kind of stuff to happen. And they were both really gracious in when I asked them if I could share their LinkedIn profile with the attendees of the panel so that you can go in and reach out to them directly. They were both very open and willing to talk to anyone who's interested. And so the first person is a young lady named Eliza. Can y'all see my screen okay? Yes? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Great. This is Eliza. Eliza works for Sotheby's. Always hard for me to get out. She's in a vice president role. She was here at Wake Forest, majored with a BA in economics and art history. She also was a Chi O Grace. Look at that. And so Eliza couldn't make it tonight. She had something come up, but she said to connect with her on LinkedIn, and she'd be glad to talk with you about her job and her career path at Sotheby's. The next person was Brad Hirsch. Brad did his undergrad at the University of Maryland in graphic design. We were fortunate enough to have Brad in one of our pre-experienced master's programs over in the business school, where he got a master's in management. And now he's the creative director for this very cool company called Red Light Management. And Red Light Management is their management firm for some pretty big music names. He's based out of Nashville, and he is absolutely open to talking to anyone who's interested about the music industry, the creative director role that he currently has, and there are internships that I'm going to be sharing with you on that follow-up email at Right Management. And so without further ado, I want to jump right back into the panel. So Lily, why don't you kick us off? Introduce yourself. Tell us where you are currently working, what you majored in while you were here in school, and where you live.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Lily Cooper. I was a graduate of the class of 2021, so pretty recent and pretty impacted by everything COVID. I double majored in business and enterprise management. I did a custom concentration in art markets, and then I had a second major in art history. I knew I wanted to be in the arts fields, but I didn't know exactly what that would look like. And today, I guess 2.5 years out of graduation, I find myself as the vice president of US sales for a company called Picture, which works with museums, libraries, and archives all around the US and all around the world. But I myself am located in Washington, D.C., where I do work remotely, but do a lot of travel to different clients and things like that. And I've been in D.C. for about 2 years now and really love it.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here, Lily. And David Lavis. I found David Lavis on LinkedIn just recently, and I'm so excited to meet David Lavis. Tell everybody about where you work and what program and majors you had here at Wake Forest.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Sharon, for reaching out. I'm really happy to be here and talk to you all. So I am also currently located in DC. Shout out, Lily. And I graduated in 2013, which seems like a very long time ago. I got a BA in psychology and the fine arts of studio art. So it was a little bit of a circuitous route to get to where I am today. Currently, I work as a corporate fundraiser for the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in DC. So when I started off at Wake, I was not really sure where I wanted to go after I graduated. I knew I wanted to do something with the arts. The fine arts would be great. But I kind of just left it up to fate and did a little traveling. And when I was there, I was also heavily involved with lots of activities clubs, and I did some fundraising. And through that, I got my first job working at a wildlife nonprofit as a fundraiser. And that first job was basically planning trips for major donors. So kind of, we would call them safaris, to go see some of these huge megafauna kind of migration events. And from there, I kind of dabbled in a little different things and found corporate fundraising, which I found really exciting and interesting in terms of the culture compared to individual fundraising. I find that my job is very comparative, I think, to someone working for a corporation in sales or project management. But working at the Kennedy Center, which I've been there for 5 years now, has been really rewarding. It's a very cool place to be. My office is inside a theater, so I walk in and there's all kinds of cool things happening on stage every day that I get to be a part of. So I'm happy to talk more about it.
What a gorgeous backdrop too, right there on the river. Just very, very cool.
Very stunning. Yeah.
Very stunning. Natalie Parent. It's so good to see you. We can't hear you.
Okay, hi. I am currently a bids coordinator here at Sotheby's. I'm in the auction house right now, right outside our sale room. And here I work as really a in-between for the departments and the clients to make sure that their sales are going as smoothly as possible and that everything is operating as it's supposed to. It's really an operations side to auction management, and get to see a lot of interesting sales every single day. And I kind of fell into this role after I studied art history at Wake. I wanted to work in the arts, but wasn't quite sure like in what capacity. And I went on to get my master's at Sotheby's Institute of Art and study art and art business, and kind of learn more about the different roles that I could have working in the art world. And that's how I kind of found this job here, decided that I really enjoyed the operations side of it and getting to see kind of behind the curtain of what goes on in an auction room.
Very cool. And you're in New York City, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, I'm assuming everybody knows what Sotheby's does, but just high level, what is the firm responsible for? And just give us an idea of what a typical day looks like for you.
Yeah. So here we really operate as kind of like a third party where we are getting art from clients and reselling it to other individuals. And it really could be anything, not just art, but we also will auction off wine, handbags. We auction off homes, cars, really just about anything that you can think of. And for me, yeah, my day to day tends to look like a little different depending on exactly what's going on. But I will come in early on a sale day, spend time making sure that the client's registrations are complete, and then make sure that we've coordinated all of their registrations. A lot of clients like to be called during the sale, so make sure that every client gets called so that they can bid with a representative in the sale room. And then I will work with the auctioneers to make sure that they feel prepared for the sale that they're going to be auctioneering that day. And I sit next to the auctioneer during the sale to help them with any escalations, keep a record of the auction, and make sure that everything's running smoothly.
How often do you have sales?
We usually have like over 150 sales a year. So I am usually working like 2 to 3 a week, maybe.
Wow, that's a lot. What's the most interesting thing that you've been a part of selling?
We've had some really cool art collections come in. And I would say like this past fall, we had a Picasso that sold for $121 million. So that was definitely one of the most interesting things that I've gotten to see and be a part of.
So they don't like leave their credit card with you, right? For $121 million. Like,
Yeah.
so after the sale is over, are you kind of done? Or are you operationally trying to complete that sale at after the actual auction has happened?
Once the auction has done, we kind of do like a little reconciliation just to make sure that everything looks right, and we close the sale, and then it goes off to our post-sale team who then does the billing. But yeah, for a sale of that level, there's obviously like some extra steps that we go into before we register somebody for an auction. So we'll do some financial verification process to make sure that everything checks out and that it's legitimate. They'll be able to pay for it before they
Other
can
than
bid.
houses and cars, do you have inventory there in the auction house on a daily basis? Is there an inventory of this stuff? I mean,
we have our own exhibition space. So if we're selling, I mean, we'll do like furniture and design sales, jewelry auctions are very popular, and we'll have all of that on view for clients to come and see. They can see it by appointment, or usually they can just walk in, and they're actually open to the public. So I always like recommend to people to come in and view them. A lot of people don't know that you can just walk in usually, and there will be something on view. So
did not know that either. That's really interesting. Very interesting. Well, I could talk about that all night. I could also talk about the cool things going on over at the Kennedy Center. So, David, tell us what a typical day looks like for you, what you're responsible for, and some interesting projects you're currently working on or have worked on.
Yeah, it's, we have put on 2,000 performances a year, so every day is different, right? I would say, so my job in particular, to kind of drill down a little bit more on that, I work with all of the corporate sponsors and funders for the Kennedy Center. So typically a day-to-day will be getting lunch with a client, or getting on a phone call, putting together a pitch deck or something to ask them for support for an upcoming performance. It could be something like we have a lot of defense contractors that sponsor the Kennedy Center. Since we're in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of those folks around. And we will ask them to come and sponsor something like the Mark Twain Prize, which is coming up next month. And so what I'll do is I'll work with my team to basically create a relationship with them. So again, that's a lot of, meetings, calls, and asking them about what their business interests are. And, from that, we kind of go back, we talk to our programmers and we say, what's a great opportunity that's coming up? What's a performance that has a certain bent to it that might speak to some of the other philanthropic things that they're doing? The other side of that also is, I will say, arts funding has changed over a couple of past decades. It used to be you'd call up like Bob Schmel on the phone as the CEO of X company and be like, hey, I heard you like opera. Do you want to cut us a check? And he's like, yeah, sure. Here's like 500 grand. That doesn't really happen anymore. So the way we approach corporate fundraising today is we really think about it in terms of what is the business interest, right? So each company has different departments that have budgets and they have goals that they need to reach with that budget. So we'll think about what is the ROI we can bring for sponsorship for the arts. And it seems a little sharky or kind of a little cut and dry to think about arts fundraising that way. But when you're talking to corporations, you really kind of have to speak their language and figure out what it is that they can bring back to their board that's saying this X amount of investment in the Kennedy Center is going to help us achieve our goals. And then the flip side of that also is, there's the feel good side of it too. So there's a lot of, this is the impact we're having on the arts. This is X number of artists that you're helping to bring to the Kennedy Center. We have a huge education program too. So we do a lot of putting together packages of numbers and impact and things like that. So it's we're in PowerPoint a lot, putting together pitches and decks, right? But it's mostly relationship building. So, that's a big part of my day-to-day. And that's the fun part of the job is I get to meet with all kinds of really interesting people who are passionate about the arts at the end of the day. And as a person who is an artist himself or, went to school for the arts, it feels nice to be able to kind of work that angle and help bring money into the arts in that way. So that's a little bit of my day to day.
Yeah, very impactful. Do you 2,000 shows a year? That's multiple in a day, like a lot in a day.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And so do you get to go to these? Is that a perk of working for the Kennedy Center, that do you get to attend some
Yes,
of these
that is
shows?
probably the best perk of the job. We get free tickets often, so, and I'm a huge theater buff, so you know, Broadway shows will come through all the time. We have 3 main theaters, so there is always something playing at the Kennedy Center every single day and night. We have, I think, 9 theaters in all. Their different sizes, but we'll frequently get free tickets. You know, my department, we work for our big galas as well, so we'll see some of those shows. So like the Kennedy Center Honors, if you're familiar with that, we'll get to work that. That being said, I'm usually outside of the theater, like helping put up cocktail napkins last second, right? Helping all of our operations people with the fine details. But yeah, that is a very cool part of the job. And even things like we have a program where we get high school students in DC and we bus them from all the different wards of DC over to the Kennedy Center for a free performance. And sometimes I'll get to pop in and see a bunch of 5th graders just like, you know, squealing with joy watching a classical performance or something. And it's very cool. So that's definitely the most rewarding part of the job.
What was your favorite performance of last year?
That is a great question. I did see La Boheme for the opera, which I was not an opera person when I started. I was like, that's very stuffy. I don't know about that. But and I went to one, and it was very fun. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know about last year, but I did see Wicked, so that was very, very good, I have to say.
Very cool.
Classic.
Very, very, very cool. Cool. All right, Lily, let's move over to something a little different, but very, very cool. Tell everybody about what you do, your responsibilities, and some cool projects that you're working on.
Yeah, so I do a very similar job that David does, but instead of working for a nonprofit, I work for a for-profit. I work for an external company called Picture that acts as a vendor or a service provider to museums, libraries, and archives, all kinds of institutions that have large collections. My company comes in and we digitize archival, botanical, entomology, photographic collections. So we'll essentially take a physical archive, a physical thing, take very high quality images of it, transcribe the data associated with that object, and then give it to our clients as a package, turning something physical into something digital that's accessible to people, researchers all around the world. So I, as the VP of US Sales, am responsible for all of our new business, seeking out new potential clients, consulting potential clients on a project, telling them what a project might look like, putting together pricing, meeting with them, traveling to their institutions to do collection visits. And I also work for a company that's very small. And so I do a lot of other tasks as well. I work with more marketing. I manage conferences, all sorts of things. On any given day, I can be emailing back and forth with a client about a potential project to digitize 200,000 pinned insect specimens. I could be meeting with someone to go over a test that we did for a potential project. So some of the things that I've gotten to work on are we work a lot with the Smithsonian, and so the National Museum of African American History and Culture recently acquired the Johnson Publishing Company archive, and my company is working with both of those institutions to digitize all of those photographs from years and years of documenting Black life in America. It's just incredible, the richness of this archive. We're working with the California Academy of Sciences to digitize their herbarium, which is pressed dried plant specimens, and that's making scientific information available to researchers all around the world who are working on climate change, populations of plants and how they've moved around the world, medicinal reasons. it's a lot of very cool stuff.
Wow.
And on any given day, it's a little different. And I'm also coordinating with an international team, so I'm meeting people from all around the world, in very many facets of the art world that I didn't even know existed.
Wow. And so you mentioned that it's a small company. It's a small company, and so you do a lot of different things for the company. Who's taking these high resolution photographs? Is that people who work for Picture A, or do you outsource some of that stuff?
It kind of depends on what the project looks like. So we do have a digitization studio in Jersey City, New Jersey, where we have a team that is working full-time on site on a variety of different projects that are amenable to being packaged and safely transported to our studio there. But some collections can't be moved, like some of the large natural history collections. And so for those, we would set up our equipment on the site of the museum and then hire a team locally to do the actual digitization work. And a lot of these individuals are professional photographers or students that have experience, or recent graduates with experience in archaeology or curation, collection management, things like that.
Oh, very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. And so I'm going to switch topics for just a second and stay with Lily. Talk to these very bright and brilliant, eager minds about how you actually got that job. And I want you to think about, like, I saw the job posted on LinkedIn and then, or somebody told me about a job with, like, how did you find this job, and what was the process like to get hired? And David, I'm going to come to you next, and Natalie, you'll be after David.
Yeah, so they say everything happens for a reason, and sometimes you just get really lucky. I was a spring senior, and I'd applied to some jobs, but I didn't have a very concrete direction. I knew I wanted to be in DC. That was really important to me, but I wasn't really sure if I wanted to be on the commercial side of the art world or work in a gallery or an auction house. I didn't know if I wanted to work for a museum. I thought maybe I wanted to work in development and advancement and fundraising. All of these things sounded really interesting to me. So I applied to a very wide range of jobs. And in doing so, I was also telling myself I was just kind of practicing with some of these applications, because it's a lot of work, and you have to kind of hone your skills of your cover letter and how you're going to do an interview. And I came across a posting on Indeed for the position with Picture A. I saved it, thought that looked really interesting, went back a few days later and it was gone, panicked, because naturally I've missed my chance. But I Googled the company, I kept doing all my research, and I found that on their website, they still had the job posted. And so I took a chance and applied that way. I went through a 3-round interview process that went from people who today are my daily colleagues that I work with. And then it was advanced to people in the Netherlands. And then finally I met with the director of sales and the CEO of the company. And they gave me like a simulation and gave me an RFP. I'd never heard of an RFP. I had no idea what that was, and said, fill this out, pretend like you were responding to this request for proposal and proposing to NYU that you were going to digitize this collection for them. So I had no idea what I was being asked to do or what I was going to do, but
You're a senior in college at this point. Yes. You're still in school.
Yes, I'm still in school. And I just had no idea what was going to happen, but I made a positive impression because I showed that I really, really loved what this company could do. And I loved the idea of being really passionate about the kind of work that you get to do on a daily basis. I mean, loving your job is not underrated. If you love your job, your life can be just really, really exciting from a day-to-day perspective. So, and I took a chance, and it was really, really great. They said one of the most, the best first impression I made was applying directly to them and not through LinkedIn or Indeed. So I certainly recommend that route. If you have that option, go directly to the source of the hiring team.
Yes, good research. Put that Wake Forest, right? work ethic right on top of just the preparation, right, for the interview. Super interesting. All right, David, let's hear how you got to the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, so I think I applied to this job 5 years ago. So this was kind of well into my career as a fundraiser. So I saw the job on Indeed, like a lot of people do, and I applied, and I think I went through the whole process, multiple rounds of interviews, but I think the thing that really helped set me up is I like literally saying I did a lot of research before going in. I made sure to know the season. I made sure to know the people whose names would, resonate with the people who I was interviewing with in the development department, right? And that's a lot of stalking on LinkedIn, which is, very important in some instances. But, I would say before that, which might be a little bit more resonant, my first job out of college, I was doing the same thing. I knew I wanted to be in DC from Winston-Salem, and I was kind of just applying to a bunch of different jobs. And I would say the thing that really helped me was I really leaned into the extracurriculars that I did, which sounds so funny because you always say, oh, this extracurriculars, like, sure, they're fun, but where are they going to take you? That's literally how I got my first job was, I did a turkey trot fundraiser for the Habitat for Humanity Club on campus. I worked at Campus Kitchen, right? All those little tiny things are just little tangible things you could put on your resume. And I think the key thing there is also translating it into, corporate speak or nonprofit speak, those keywords that they tell you to put in your resume and cover letter are really the things that they look for, help you out of the pile that's on people's desk and in front of someone so they can actually talk to a human being. And then in the interview, before I had applied for that job, I just went and traveled for a little bit on a shoestring budget. And they heard, oh, you know how to plan an event for no money? Perfect. This is exactly what you're gonna be doing at a nonprofit. So you already have the skills. And that was literally just a personal thing I did. And I think really just finding the things that you're doing in your day-to-day life that may not necessarily be, your degree or what you're learning in class, which is all very important. It's the foundation, but there's other things, and translating those into work experience or how that can be used in a work environment was super helpful. And then once you get in there, of course, making sure you're keeping those relationships strong, building relationships in different departments. I started off not in corporate fundraising, but made friends with the people on that team. They told me more about it. I was, let me try a little bit of that. And then I got in, applied, and got on that team, started working more directly, and just kept building up. And that's kind of how I got to a point where I could apply to a place like the Kennedy Center, which is a machine when it comes to fundraising and corporate fundraising. And they were looking for someone with some experience already. So
wow,
hopefully that's helpful.
Very cool. The networking never stops, does it?
Literally, it's all about networking. That is, I think, one of the most important things.
Networking and relationship building will get you your first job, and it'll get you almost every single job after that. Natalie, tell us how you found that job. What did it feel like? What happened?
Yeah, so I originally applied while I was still in graduate school because I was just looking for something to kind of help build my resume. The company at the time was hiring for some part-time staff to work their exhibition spaces and sort of help clients as they're in the building, just asking basic questions, checking their accounts, kind of connecting them with the right specialists, or really just doing a lot of kind of basic administrative work. But I had previously had a lot of experience with working with clients, just doing like basic servicing jobs, which really was something that I played into because while I didn't have a lot of experience working necessarily in like an art gallery, I had worked with a lot of clients before, even in just like the smallest way. So that was what I was really emphasizing when I started interviewing for the job, to be on the part-time staff. And from there, I was able to meet a lot of different managers on a few different teams and get hired into a position full-time when they had space open up and knew that I was finishing my thesis, they actually just reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in taking on a full-time job once they knew that I had already finished my schooling. So from there, I was able to kind of go through a little informal interview process and start working on a full-time basis on the kind of client services and bids teams until I got into my current role as, again, just working more to kind of deciding like what area I would be more interested in and figuring out what way to get there, as I saw like a position opening up on a different team, and I asked if I would be able to interview for that job and see learn more about that role. And my previous experience like working with clients really helped played into that, because even though now I'm doing a lot of different operational things and learned more about like auction management, again, I just did like a lot of research to kind of learn about that before I interviewed for the job, because even though I'd never like really seen an auction play out from start to finish like that, I was able to learn a lot about the different kinds of roles that go into having an auction go run, just from like Google and a couple of different books that really told me like more about it. But yeah, it was definitely very helpful to have like a little bit of a basic knowledge just by Googling and researching and learning more about the company and what things they had going on, and then kind of networking from there to get into my current role.
Not kind of, like serious networking. And so how long, so you found the part-time job while you were in grad school, getting your master's.
Yes.
And how long did you work part-time before a space opened up that was meant for you?
In the end, I think it was about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
4 months. Good. And then they had a position open up, and yeah, I started out kind of as a client liaison on our client services team, and I was in that role for about 8 months, and then I switched to my current position.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So I'm going to go backwards again. Last question, and then I'm going to open it up to the students. So students, you should have questions. Be thinking about some questions. And so Natalie, thinking about your time at Wake Forest, and you know, that moment your senior year when things, right, the rubber was about to hit the road. What kind of advice would you give, right, your college self now that could maybe help inspire and motivate these students towards a career like yours?
Yeah. I didn't mention this earlier, but I graduated in 2020. So at the time that I graduated, like everything had just shut down for the pandemic. So I really didn't feel super hopeful as I was graduating, and just felt like there was no option for what I wanted to do next. But if I was going to go back to tell myself anything, I would just say, like, you know what you're passionate about, like just keep looking for ways to pursue it. Like I spent a lot of time browsing through different like LinkedIn's and applying for different positions, and applied to a couple of different graduate school programs until I like ultimately found what was going to be best for me. And I think I would like just reassure myself, like, yes, this will work out. You will get to where you want to be. Just like keep following what you're passionate about. Like you'll be able to make the connections.
Fantastic. And what's the best way for students to get in touch with you if they want to learn more? LinkedIn? You check LinkedIn often?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn. You can find me under Natalie Parent. That would probably be best.
Great. She does check her LinkedIn really regularly. And so thank you again. And once we hear from David and Lily, we'll open it up for questions. All right, David, what kind of advice would you give your college age self? And what's the best way for students to stay in touch?
Yeah, so many things if I could go back in time and advise myself. But I would say, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I really had no idea where I was going to go after I graduated. You know, you go around the circle at, senior year and you're like, oh, so-and-so, I have an internship, I have a new job. I didn't have anything lined up. I was just going to go travel a little bit and see what happened. And there's a lot of pressure on myself, I think, to really have everything figured out right before I, graduated and know exactly what my career path was going to be, how I was going to scale that ladder and get to the wherever I wanted to go, whatever goal that was. But I would say, it's fine to not know. It's as long as you have, the drive to do something and just experience something new. So I think you're going to get somewhere that is going to be really nice, and you're gonna really learn a lot of things along the way when you kind of just take things that kind of come to you, opportunities that arise. That being said, you should definitely be proactive in finding opportunities, but I would say take chances on jobs that you might not think you would want in the meantime. It could lead to something else that is a better fit or something that you never would have thought of. I didn't even know this was a kind of job that I could do when I was in college. And here I am, and I love my job. I love the day-to-day. So I would say that's a big one. And then also, like I was saying before, take advantage of the resources you have now in school, especially at Wake. There's so many amazing resources that I wish I would have taken more advantage of. Free resources for students, different kinds of meetings, things like that you can go to and hear from different professionals, or even just things like free trials of software and things like that they have specifically just for people in school. Because once you get out of that and you lose that ID card, it is rough in these streets when you have to pay for everything, and you have less time to just explore stuff. So I would say that's another big thing. And I think LinkedIn is a great way to keep in touch, and I'm happy to, follow up after and answer any questions. So
thank you. Lily?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are going to say a lot of the same things about what we look back and wish we had done or did and are thankful we did. But I was expressing to Sharon before the meeting that I always had these things on my radar, and then maybe last second I would decide, oh, I'm going to go to the pit with my friends, or oh, I'm going to do this instead, because I was so concerned about enjoying the last few months of college or being so mentally in college, and I wasn't mentally ready for that next step. So kudos to all of you, because you are here and you are taking those proactive measures. But that really is going to be something that your future self thanks you for. And especially, I'm sure there are many industries like this, but as you've heard from all of us, none of us really knew exactly the kind of job we were looking for, because we didn't know the jobs that we have were out there. And I think when you look at some very well-respected careers that people in the B school go to, that a lot of different kind of majors funnel people into, there are a lot of very well-trodden paths out there, but that doesn't mean that the paths that you haven't seen people go down before are any less awesome. Be willing to be the person that takes a chance on a job that no one knows what it really is, but you love it anyway. It's kind of cool to have to explain your job to people when you are working in something so complex and so niche that that what you do is something no one else is doing. And there's something really, really incredible about that. And having all of those resources at Wake Forest and the classes that you get to take to experience those kinds of things, allow yourself to be curious. If you really like a class and you think something is interesting, but you don't really know how that translates to the real world, reach out to more alums, reach out to your professor who might know someone who's doing something related to that. Also take advantage of things that are in and around campus, both virtually and in person. I used to think conferences were like really boring and snuffy type things that only old people went to, but they're actually really cool and really fun. And I get to go to a lot of trade conferences in my job. So if you ever have the opportunity to go to a conference that's relatively related to something that you're interested in, whether it be hosted at Wake or nearby or again virtually, definitely go, because you get to hear from incredible people doing crazy things and your world just kind of opens up. Lots of things that you can be doing, and it's hard to do them all, but any steps you take towards any of these things are going to set you up for success down the road, and also make you feel really good about the things that you accomplished at Wake.
Fantastic. And LinkedIn's the best place to touch base with you?
That'd be great.
Awesome. All right, guys, who's got questions? And just come off of mute, ask your question. Liam, I saw your hand go up first. I love it. Tell them what program you're in, a little bit about your background, and who your question's for.
Yeah, my name is Liam Franco. I'm in the Master of Science and Management program at Wake Forest, and I came from University of North Carolina School of the Arts with a saxophone performance background. So there's that. And my question, it's for anyone. We talked about some good practices, things to do, doing networking. But what are some common mistakes or things that we should stray away from doing when applying for jobs in the arts industry?
Great question. Anyone to jump in?
I can start us off here. That's awesome to hear. You had a background in the saxophone. Love the sax, played that myself. I think there's really, in terms of things to avoid when applying for jobs, it's really, you have to be careful about making sure that, again, like I was saying before, aligning your experience with what is being requested on the job application. That's probably, I'm sure you've heard that before, job application 101 here. But the arts, I think, is really no different than any kind of industry in that way, where when they're hiring people, specifically in kind of jobs like we're talking about, that may be more back of house and less on the stage or with the, the instrument in hand. It goes a long way to really know exactly what those keywords are and what those skills are, and have a little bit of that. So if you're going in and kind of just putting random things in or not really tweaking your experiences to match more of that verbiage, then you just may never even have the conversation. And that's the hardest part, is getting into that room and getting them to talk to you. And then you can dazzle them with your amazing personality and get hired. But that's the hardest step, I would say.
Lily, Natalie, do you have anything to add? Lily's gone off mute. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think it's really great to do as much research as you can beforehand. And that research isn't just figuring out what that company or what that institution does, but also figuring out who does it with them. Because especially a lot of my experiences in DC, and for certain federal type jobs for the Smithsonian, for the National Gallery of Art, you're applying through a platform called USA Jobs, and there are tricks to making your application ping in that first review in the system. And so if you have any connection, any close, second degree, things like that on LinkedIn, and you reach out to someone and you can be so honest and say, hey, I'm interested in applying to this. Can you help me out? And give me some feedback on what your application process was like. It doesn't mean you have to go directly to the hiring manager, but someone who might be on an adjacent team. There are lots of different, like I said, tricks in different with different institutions like that. And I would also just say, make sure you read the requirements in the job description. I've done some hiring myself, and you'd be amazed that when you ask people to supply references in the cover letter, how many people just send their resume. And it can be as simple as that, and not that it is as simple as that, but those are the kinds of mistakes that are really easy to kind of cross someone off the list when very early on that attention to detail isn't there.
Yeah, following some simple baseline instructions. Great advice. Isaiah, you have had your hand raised. Who's your question for?
So my question's actually for all the panelists. I'm Isaiah Little. I'm in the Master of Science in Management with Liam, but I also got my Bachelor of Arts in Sociology at Wake as well. And so a common theme across the board from all the panelists is I really value collaborative, community-based, creative work environments. And so my question is, like, as you navigated the job search, how did you kind of assess whether or not the workplace culture kind of reflected and aligned with those values or your own personal values?
Great question. Yeah. Natalie, you want to start?
Yeah, I would love to start with this question because I really love the team that I work with. And I feel like one of the first ways that I really started to think about like the culture of the company was, first of all, just like trying to do more research about them and like the things that the company itself was interested in and investing their time in besides just like their own business structure, like really taking the time to see like what kind of, um, in our case, charity auctions are we hosting? What sort of local communities are we contributing to? Like a greater impact of the company. And then also just paying really close attention, like during the interview, to the way that I thought, like I had a couple of interviews where I was interviewing with like two people at a time. So kind of like the way that they were interacting and also like the communication with each other, making sure that I was asking questions about kind of company culture and really trying to get a sense of how the employees like interacted and treated one another as much as I could as well. Yeah.
David, how were you able to determine that it was the right collaborative culture for you?
Yeah, it's a hard question, I think, when you're looking from the outside in. I agree with what Natalie's saying. It's really great when you get into the interview to kind of study how the questions they ask themselves. I mean, it's very common to just straight up ask, what's your culture like? Can you tell me, a little bit about that? And if they're struggling to answer, then maybe they haven't thought about it before, and that might be a red flag. I would say some other things that you could probably look at. Glassdoor is probably a common answer. You probably know about that already. You get mixed reviews. It's like Yelp. You always get the negative ones and not necessarily all the positive ones. But again, it's a good thing to include in your research. But I think in general, if you're already in the community where the place where you're applying, there are probably people who may work there or have a friend that works there. And really just plumbing your network. I think that's the best way to figure out that, there's more than likely going to be a third degree, fourth degree separation of someone who knows someone who works at that company, and getting it straight from someone who worked there is the best way to figure out what the culture's like and if they really value not just the people that work there, but like truly adhere to their mission and it aligns with what you're trying to get out of.
Lily, anything to add?
I don't think so. I think I would say definitely don't be afraid to ask those kinds of questions in an interview, because I would always like to, say, oh, tell me your favorite thing about your job. And that tells you so much about how that person feels about who they work for, what they're doing, and who they work with.
Great question, Isaiah. Who else has got a question? Yes, Chris. I don't want to mess up your name. Say your name and what your major is and who your question's for.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Chris Contos. Um, I'm actually a freshman, but I'm interested in the business school and I've been playing piano all my life. And so to hear that there was a meeting about business and how it intersects with art made me really interested. Um, but I guess my question's kind of, and anybody could answer, it was kind of what steps do you think you took undergrad and after the fact that kind of geared you towards the right way? And whether it be internships or networking or classes, things like that. Maybe even if you weren't, you know, at where you thought you would have been in undergrad. I'm so just curious to see what kind of resources you guys utilize that you think wound up helping you a lot in the future.
Kudos for you for just taking the time out of your first year at Wake Forest to participate in a panel like this. And it's a really great question. And so, Natalie, do you want to answer that? Like, when and how did you decide that, what your major was going to be and what kind of career path you wanted to take? What kind of things did you participate in undergrad that took you there?
Yeah, of course. I was not sure. One of the reasons that I loved Wake was that I didn't have to decide my major until my sophomore year because I really wasn't sure that what I wanted to do. But I had actually taken an art history class in high school, so I had like a little bit of exposure to it, and took another one during my freshman year just for my art credit. I thought that that would be like the last one that I took, but I actually really enjoyed it and found that some of the like more business school classes that I was taking weren't necessarily what I would want to be studying full time. I wanted to like really pursue something more arts focused. So that is, I was really glad that I did that. I think, I mean, as an undergrad student, I don't think that my parents were super pleased that I chose art history instead of business school. But I really think that if you are studying something that you're passionate about it, then you're gonna definitely find a way to like incorporate that into your life going forward, even if it's something that doesn't necessarily seem super practical. But at the same time, I had great professors. I really definitely used my professors a lot as a resource to find like what opportunities could I take beyond college that I'll be able to use this like art history background where I'll get to be involved in the arts. And they helped me connect with like other previous students that they'd had and alumni to kind of see what areas of the art world they were working in and start networking from there. So I think that that's never like underestimate during your undergrad time, like what your professors can do for you and how willing they are to help you. So I would definitely recommend leveraging that as much as possible, looking into different kinds of classes. I liked taking a variety to just really see like what worked best for me. And yeah, internships as well. I mean, again, trying to find sort of using that as like an entry point of being like, okay, that I think this is something I'm interested in. Definitely take an internship in that area. I interned at a museum one year and really liked that experience, kind of finding any sort of way that you can to dip your toe in, I guess, in the area that you're interested in. See if it's something that like really is going to work for you. Cause I know I have a lot of friends who interned and then decided like, actually, that's not at all what I wanted to do, or I didn't like the culture of that sort of company. It's a good way to kind of set a barometer for yourself of like what you
Yeah,
do want, what you do like and what you don't.
excellent advice. I think it's just as much impact in figuring out it's not what you want to do
Exactly.
as it is to what you do want to do. Excellent advice. And I will echo what Natalie said about faculty. The faculty are so committed to our students. I've not found one faculty member that I've ever run into in any capacity during my 11 years at Wake Forest that weren't so excited to help students figure this stuff out. David, any advice?
Been a long time since I was an undergrad, so I have to dig deep. Yeah, no, I echo what Natalie said. I mean, I lean on my professors to tell me, you know, from their real world experience, and they already have that relationship with you, right? So, it's a good, safe place to kind of just ask what you might think are dumb questions and you know, things that you may not know about from the get. So, I would say that's a great place to start. In terms of like classes to take, try different things in different areas. For piano, I mean, maybe even if you're looking to have a career as a performer or something specifically in that kind of area, find someone in your local community in Winston-Salem. Also, go to like stores, performing arts venues, chat up the person who's selling you the tickets or whatnot. People who are kind of adjacent to the career that you might want to be in, because oftentimes when you ask someone to talk about their career or themselves or their job, if they love it, they're going to definitely want to tell you more about it, right? So I mean, really just being open to meeting new people and talking to people about their experiences, I think is the best way to just, again, get an idea of all the different kinds of ways that you could go and different routes you could take.
Great advice. Great advice. We're running right up to 6 o'clock. And Mercy had a real wanted me to make sure this is kind of appropriate for your question to introduce Shan. Shan, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the students what you do for Wake Forest and how you can maybe help figure some of this out? with them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Shan Willard. I work in the Office of Personal and Career Development. I already know a lot of you, some of you have even seen this week. And so good to see you all again. But I'm the liaison from the OPCD to the arts students. So if you have questions about your life after Wake Forest, I'll try to work with you and help you with that as much as I can.
She's a fantastic resource, and the Office of Career and Personal Development has, you know, many of you mentioned earlier about taking advantage of the resources that you have while you're at Wake Forest. Well, there is an entire army of people employed by Wake Forest to help you figure this out, help you navigate some very, you know, very confusing, you know, applications and career trajectory. So definitely take advantage of all of those things while you're at Wake Forest. And so I'll close us out with one more just sincere expression of gratitude towards Lily and David and Natalie for investing part of their day. Time is such a, it's a commodity, right? It's so valuable. And when you leave school, you realize how much of a commodity time is. So we appreciate you investing part of your time in helping educate these students on your career paths and potential opportunities for them to make a career out of something that they're equally as passionate about. So thank you very much. And again, I'll follow up tomorrow with a great email full of even more resources. And join us next week. I feel like a commercial, like join us next week for another great alumni panel when we'll be learning about careers in government and politics. Sign up on Handshake. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye. Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Natalie.